heart in a lot of ways because Matthew and Denise grew up here in the Coastal Bend, went to school in Flower Bluff where I retired from 29 years of teaching. Shirley Thornton also, I taught with her, and she taught for 27 years, is that right? 28, and also has been on the school board for 14 years, so she's still giving back to the community. And it's just always great when I see students, and see the great things they're doing, and this is just a typical example of that. Matthew and Denise Thornton, and I'm going to bring up Denise in a second, they're filmmakers from Griffin Company Productions, whose latest film is This Life and Legacy about Kent Ullberg. Kent Ullberg is an internationally acclaimed sculptor, is known for his iconic wildlife sculptures that have become landmarks in the cities and conservation spaces around the globe. And if you haven't had a chance to see his sculpture in front of the UTMSI Visitor Center, I think you'll be motivated to go check it out sometime this week because it's a pretty amazing piece. And when I would take my students there, when we did field trips to Port Aransas, it was a must to spend some time in front of that sculpture, and it's just some moments of discovery of how much is involved in that sculpture. It's just really amazing. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Denise Thornton, and then we'll kind of let everybody introduce the rest of the people involved, and we'll reserve Kent's time up here to answer questions after the viewing. So, Shirley?
Thank you. Okay, I always have to adjust this for my height. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name's Denise Thornton. I am the proud wife of the film director Matthew Thornton, who's here and will come up in a moment. I also had the privilege of serving as the executive producer of this film. You'll notice if you read any of the bios, this was a family affair. So my mother-in-law, Shirley Thornton, was actually my 7th grade teacher at Flower Bluff. And somehow I ended up marrying her son, and we decided to start a production company. And this film actually came about from a dinner at Snoopy's that Shirley invited Matthew to come along and join the Ullbergs. And the idea was born there that we knew that we had this amazing world-renowned sculptor within our community that people did not know his life story, and that needed to be told because we are absolutely so proud to be living amongst somebody that has created sculptures that that mean so much to the community. So with that, I have here Shirley Thornton. She is in the back. So thanks, Granny, as we all call her, for getting this film off the ground and running. I'm going to turn it over here in a second to Matthew, who is over to my right. And when we first came up with the idea after dinner, we actually sat with Kent and Virla at their home on Padre Island, and we recorded a podcast. You can listen to that. There is a QR code on the back of the program that you got for this evening, and it's also on the little QR code. If you want to listen to that Creative Moonlighting podcast, you can listen to that episode. The link is on there. So I'm going to turn it over now, Matthew, if you want to come on up and set the stage for, we're going to show you one chapter of the film. The film actually has 5 chapters that we premiered on Friday. So forgive me if I'm stuttering a little bit. It has been a long weekend of many events, and this is kind of the cherry on top. So Matthew, if you want to set the stage for that. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank everybody for coming out. I know the weather played a role in plans for the day, but to look out and see so many faces is really great. So thank you, first of all, for that. As my wife said, we have started this whole process. We recorded a almost 2.5-hour long podcast, mostly unedited, just talking with Kent and Virla about their lives, how they ended up in Corpus, how they met, all of those things, and how Kent started as a taxidermist and started working in museums, and that part of his life took him to Africa. But what you're going to see tonight is just a segment of this 90-minute film. We actually shot almost 25 hours worth of footage over the last 2 years. So this is a 20-minute segment of that. There's an entire story that goes from his childhood to the point of what you're going to see here tonight. He didn't obviously just wake up and get to start doing these massive wildlife sculptures that we all get to drive past and have be a part of our everyday lives. So you're missing out on the opening part, but as Cliff Strain said, at some point we would love to be able to share that. This just wasn't the space, or we didn't have quite the time for it tonight. But tonight's segment is really geared toward the piece, the theme of the piece that you would see here in Port A. It's called Interdependency, and I'm gonna save the talk about the artwork for the artist. He'll be able to tell you much more about that. But I can tell you, when I put this chapter together, for me, interdependency was also a theme throughout what artists go through. So you're going to see multiple artists featured in this. You're going to see the intersection of both art and nature and conservation and education. And so those are the sort of key themes that to be looking for. And other than that, again, it's a little out of context. So but apart from that, I hope that you're able to enjoy this 20-minute segment. We'll watch it, and then of course at the end, whatever questions you may have, the artist is here. Mr. and Mrs. Ullberg are sitting second row, and there they are. And so we'll have that talk afterward, okay? Sound okay there? Oh, by the way, Cliff Strain was also my 6th grade teacher, oceanography. All connected. Good to go? Okay.
An oil tanker ran aground today off the nation's northernmost ice-free port, Valdez, Alaska.
In the great oil spill in Prince William Sound, hundreds of eagles died, lots of sea creatures died. I was sculpting an eagle, and I always played public classical music in my studio, in the radio. And on come Mozart's Requiem. It played, and I just twisted head backwards, closed the wings, like he was suffering. It happened so quick. When the Requiem was done, it was done. And it's a sculpture that has not been all that popular with collectors and stuff, which is kind of impressive, I guess.
That type of things, I think, is more accepted in Europe than it is here. Americans have a different, they want more fun, color, pleasant.
But a lot of artist fans love it. I've traded paintings for it. And one artist went even bought one. Yeah. I love classical music. It helps me get out of myself, my own ego, and I just sculpt to the music. It helps a lot. And we become big supporters of KDT, Corpus Christi Public Radio. So classical music on the radio is vitally important to me. That means so much to me. Roger Tory Peterson was my hero. And then I get to an exhibition in New York City in the gallery, I had some show there, and up turns Roger Tory Peterson. God, I love that man. And we become really close. And he spent a lot of time with me on Padre Island. And we went up to Rockport, look at whooping cranes. Our area is very rich in migratory birds. And it's one of the most famous places for bird watchers.
I think especially down here, people love where they live. They love the wildlife, they love the birds, they love fishing, and his work is recognizable. You know, it's something like, hey, I've seen that bird or I've seen that fish. And sometimes they're in these, you know, I'm looking at that imitation dance, the living room behind me, these grandiose pose, and it's just like, it celebrates the nature and the natural world that we live in.
He's documenting what's important to the coastal bend, and he's doing it with great care, he's doing it with great detail.
His uniqueness is really in the monumental sculptures that he makes. There are many artists who do smaller pieces, but to convey the majesty and the beauty and the power of some of these animals he sculpts, what better way to do it than represented either life-size or double life-size?
To be appreciated by Roger Tory Peterson and to be named as one of the foremost authorities in wildlife art is an incredible accolade from his mentor.
When Roger died, I was commissioned to do his memorial sculpture. Roger's favorite bird was a king penguin. He did like 15 expeditions to the Antarctic to study them. He was really incredible. So I did a king penguin, over life size, a 6-foot-tall king penguin. And then I put a chick on his feet, sitting on his feet. And I call it King in Air. And of course, the chick is my self-portrait. I'm Roger Tory Peterson's heir. I'm a chick sitting on his feet. The aim for my work is to communicate about nature, about my love for nature and its importance to our souls and importance also to be preserved.
My art is not activist, but it is educational. I did a sculpture for the University of Texas Marine Science Institute.
Port Aransas was called Tarpon, Texas at one time, and had a lot of tarpon. And Roosevelt came to catch tarpon there. It's a well-known sports fish. So I decided I did a tarpon, 15-foot tarpon, that is made up of 50 species of marine life. And it was also for students to discover, marine science STEM center students, and to see what they could find. And they're all, of course, creatures from our area, from here.
And then there was the oceans teacher at Flower Bluff, David Bartling.
He was such an influence on the kids, teaching them about the marine environment, just perfect, backing me up.
And especially Robert, our son.
David Bartling, again, he absolutely one of my mentors because he didn't treat you like a kid. I had worked very hard. I tested and I became a captain of the school boat.
And of course today, he's a naval architect, he's the yacht designer.
As far as my high school journey, that was by far the pinnacle.
To honor Bartling, I created a heart of bronze with Bartling's name on it, and I put it beside the tarpon. Yeah, and of course nobody really knows it's there. I didn't tell anybody. I got to honor the man who had such an influence on the kids.
I guess I didn't realize that he was sort of a mentor for you.
Very much so, yeah.
How important is it for a younger artist to have a mentor in order to make?
It's very important for anybody in any creative thread to have somebody to whom they look up and whom they respect. To be honest with you, I met Kent through his work for many years before I actually met the man. Specifically, Kent was over here in Fort Lauderdale to install the biggest piece of wildlife sculpture ever put in place, the sailfish in 3 stages of ascent.
Something more, so I decided why not analyze the fish jumping? So first the fin sticking out, and then halfway out, and then all the way up, with water spraying from the splashes and stuff. He was just so approachable, personable, knowledgeable. At that stage, in the late 80s, I was very preoccupied with very detailed drawings. Being a fish illustrator, as I was called by some people, I hadn't yet become a fish artist. Ken was very analytical about my style. He said, I admire all the anatomy that you portray, but in real life, people don't see that when they're looking at nature. I couldn't believe it, I was so focused on detail and scale counts and fin counts and the way fish are supposed to look. Ken would say, Harvey, you're overdoing it. Bloody hell, man. And as we got to know each other better, he suggested to go into other media and to add watercolors to pen and ink drawings, which I did with fear and trepidation, am I going to ruin this piece of art?
You hadn't done watercolor to that point?
Not at all. I was scared to death of watercolors. And now it's my preferred medium. And I love painting with big canvases. I love the beginning part, where you're sketching everything out, you can see the end result in your mind, and then at the very end, when you sign the end of it, although you never really finish painting, but it's very gratifying to have gone through the entire process. And Kent always said, slow down, take time, look at your work. If you get stuck with something, stuck in inverted commas, let it rest for a couple of days and come back to it. And all of that advice is just so helpful.
Yeah, Billy was a good critic of mine. And she knew when I didn't do really good stuff, but she also knew when sometimes was really glad something nicely done. And when sometimes I work and get so tired, I'm ready to flatten it, bonk.
He'd get depressed and turn them all into flapjacks that had to be peeled off his sculpting table with a spatula. And I would try to convince him to just put the sculpture aside.
Sometimes Billy stopped me. No. Leave it to next day and look at it. And I look at it next day, and he showed me where he wanted to be.
I'll never forget when Ken said, the American Wildlife Art Museum is going to be opened in Jackson Hole, and you need to come to this. Going to the opening of that gallery and meeting all the other artists and seeing his piece of work, Waiting for Sockeye, which is an iconic brown bear kind of slouched on a rock. You can see the patience in the whole composition, matches the landscape beautifully around. But meeting all the other big name artists there in that genre was really special. And Ken knew them all, and he's revered amongst them all, especially the lady artists, by the way. They all love Ken. He said it's very important for you to get your name and your art out there, and even suggested the type of art that I should display or exhibit at these shows. So ever since then, I've always been part of the SAA shows and the Artists for Conservation shows. I've never refused to put in a couple of entries.
So in what ways do you think you might have influenced Kent's journey as maybe both a scientist and an artist?
I don't know that I have much influence on Kent. He's pretty good at fixing things for himself. I think he looked at my work as a sort of reference almost. And in the same way that I've always told everybody else, there's nothing like getting in front of these animals to really be inspired by them. And so where the relationship really blossomed was to go on some expeditions together.
I like the research of fish, see, and my boat was a research vessel, you know, and in fact I deducted it from my tax. Don't tell.
I also promised IRS I won't enjoy myself, so I've been working very hard. I haven't enjoyed it 1 minute. Sitting on a gunnel, waiting for you to break the glasses to go into water, the marlin and the sharks, and then I dip in afterwards.
Couple of big walleye eels, the giant Aransas snakes, and they don't want one. And then we'll go and catch things like PAPHA.
One of my favorite projects was to write about Tropic Star Lodge in Panama, where Kent and I have been many times. And it's called Panama Paradise for obvious reasons. And in the final chapter, which is all about the art of Tropic Star, because being not only in the Darien jungle, but in the adjacent sea, has inspired a lot of great people who visited to produce work, whether it's writing or art or music, as Jimmy Buffett did. But Kent and I spent time there together, and he was kind enough to bring some clay down with him, and we would sit at the weigh station if we had a black marlin that had died, you know, in the fight. And it was great for both of us to work off a specimen right there in front of us, because you don't often get fish like this to work on. They're released. So we had a lot of cool experiences together. Jimmy Buffett was there as well. Kent and I caught a lot of fish there together. I'll never forget him working at the weigh station with the clay model. And then, you know, as the time went by, he would refine the whole process, and a black marlin would suddenly appear out of this lump of clay. I think we're aided and abetted here by a couple of Roman cokes as well.
I have to tell you that my very good friend, childhood friend, she texted me last night and she said, "Oh my gosh, Skylar is Guy Harvey's biggest fan."
Are you kidding me?
You met him at a signing opportunity in 2013 in Corpus at the
Yeah.
Academy.
Yeah.
And he was so inspired by his art that he started painting.
Oh, wow.
And so this is you with Skylar back in
Goodness gracious.
2013.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was he started painting his own artwork.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
So he was able to put his artwork at a local brewery.
Yeah.
And he was so proud that he had saved up, he made $800
Yep.
at the brewery on the opening night, and he had saved up his money to buy his first surfboard.
What a great story.
Yeah.
I got interested in art from when I was little and being on the boat with my dad, and
I just had a passion for fishing and art. Some of the paintings that I've done are from memories that I've had out on the water. And when you have it in your hands and you see it up close, it really helps put a memory in your head.
Observing nature directly is the absolute key, and Ken taught me this earlier as well.
You know, a really serious artist goes directly to nature with information.
I want to communicate about that nature. I want to do an honest communication, not just from photographs, but from direct experience. You know, when they turn like this, you see a different angle. And
When I found out Guy Harvey, it just really inspired me, and the way he put the fish in a particular angle.
It's very gratifying when this worked out. And not just a few, lots of kids and even adults come up and say, hey, you know, what do you suggest? What do you think? How can I make this better? And you see them a year later or 2 years later, they show progress. There are many people who work off photographs, and nothing wrong with that. Many people who work off other people's art, inspired by it. But the ultimate goal is to inspire them to be original. And I think that's what Ken did. He pointed me in the right direction.
after all these years, I had a retrospective exhibition in the main museum, Sculpture Museum in Stockholm. And who turns up but my professor? And he was tall, 6'6" or something, and slim, you know, and in a black suit. He just as intimidating as ever. Here I am, big career, long time gone, you know, and I was scared. I said, oh, Herr Professor, yes, even at my age. And he said, Kent, I'm proud of you. Things have changed, you know, so it was like going back in time, you know, and the cycle was closed, you know, yeah.
Film, because it really is incredible, and you weren't clued in on the fact that that professor that shows up at the very end, at the very beginning of the film, told Kent that he would never make a living at doing art, and so that was, you know, quite an interesting meeting again, and you missed also the sections when he was in Africa. There's some really exciting, really humorous. This documentary really has a really wonderful mix of life events, humor, excitement, you know, and I guarantee you won't be bored for a second if you get to see the whole thing. So we're going to do our best to bring that to you sometime soon. So at this point, I think I'll bring up Kent to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you, thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, hooray. They're made out of bronze. I start by sculpting in clay. I never grew up, I still fiddle in clay. But then I make a mold of them. And that mold goes to the foundry, and they pour a wax to the thickness that they want the final bronze to be. And it's called cire perdue in French, the lost wax method. It's ancient. And that wax is then dipped in a ceramic material and fired, and the wax is melted out. And then they pour bronze when it's still hot, you know. And then, of course, big pieces like you've seen here. Some of them are made out of a lot of different pieces. I mean, something like the piece in Fort Lauderdale with probably 100 pieces, you know. And so they're all welded together. That's a hell of a job. Weld them each together. And then I have to recreate the texture with grinding tools. You know, all sorts of fine grinding tools, air-driven, to recreate so you don't look like a road map, you know. And it's doable, you know, but it's a lot of challenge. But bronze is the best material for outdoor use. And it actually protects itself by developing a patina. So you put it here by the sea, it turns green. And that green CPD protects it. And you scrape it, they've dug up, they've gotten sculptures out of Mediterranean Sea or all oceans, going back to medieval times. You pull them up and scrape off the barnacles and stuff, and underneath it's just pure bronze. It's the most durable material you can have. Yeah. It's in Loveland, Colorado, of all places. Yeah. And it's crazy. You know, when I first came to the US, I worked in Africa. I was a curator for Botswana's National Museum to build the first museum in an independent Botswana. And then the Museum of Natural History came on expedition. They were building a giant African exhibit, African Hall. And of course my boss, the chief game warden of Botswana, gave me the job to guide them in the bush and shoot the dangerous animals and make sure they are okay and all that stuff. And we had a great time together, several weeks in the bush and campfires. And I discovered Americans were fun people. And when they left me a ticket to visit Denver. And they put me up in the best hotel in downtown Denver, took me up to cowboy bars with sawdust on the floor. I thought I was in Western heaven. You know, we as Europeans, we were enamored by the Wild West. You know, we watched black and white movies of the Wild West. And then they took me to Buffalo Bill's grave and Lookout Mountain with the herd of bison. And then, but what really happened was the Western art movement was underway. And representational art, realism, was back in power. And when I was in art school, you couldn't, after the first year of sculpting from live models, you couldn't really do realism. You're supposed to do abstraction. And so when I was ready to go back to Africa, the Denver Museum hired me to supervise building the African exhibit. And I worked there for 2 years, and then I jumped off the bridge to do my sculpture full time. Best paid job I ever had, because I was a poor kid from a fishing village, working for African wages. But I jumped off the bridge, the best thing I've ever done. And I am the most grateful American you ever see. I'm living my dream here ever since. And thank you.
What is your favorite piece and why so?
In Warsaw?
Why is it your favorite?
Oh, that's hard to say. That's really difficult. When I work on them, you know, sometimes they are the favorites, you know. And then I do something else and they disappear and that's a difficult question. I don't think I haven't been asked that for a long, long time. They're all kind of favorites, and apart from a few, I'm trying to think. One of my most interesting pieces, at least, is not necessarily favorite, but close to favorite, is the Jesus statue downtown Corpus Christi. I don't know if you've seen it at Ocean Drive. There's a Jesus in a boat in front of First United Methodist Church. And that was a tremendous challenge, because the city had been dreamt forever of having, I mean, it's a namesake of our hometown, Corpus Christi, the body of Christ. And they've tried so many times, and even Gutzon Borglum, who count Mount Rushmore, came here to do a Jesus statue. And the government turned it down because it was on public land. And so be allowed to do that was a tremendous honor. And at the dedication, Borglum's daughter, who is from this area, was there for dedication. And she said, my dad would have been proud. So that was really an incredible, it's quite a challenge, of course, you know, yeah. Oh, madam?
The beautiful statue in front of Marine Science Institute is so unique. With the really preachers. I'm glad that your wife didn't see fit to smash that one when the rest of you didn't smash the rest of it. Can you tell us your inspiration on that?
Inspiration on that piece?
That's so different.
Yeah, it is very different. I worked with a professor there as well, but I wanted to do a tarpon, which is typical for Port Aransas. That's the momentum fish for Port Aransas. Used to be called tarpon, Texas, as you know. But then it's for the Marine Science Institute. And so students are going to study it and look at it. And so I wanted something for the student to study and see what's that, and then learning about the evolution from there's some there from microscopic creatures all the way up to a whale actually at the base, and that was a tremendous challenge too. And I always like to challenge myself, you know, and of course the professor came up and inspected it. He came up to my studio in Colorado and looked and said, no, that one has too few fin rays, and that one has too many fin rays, and so he picked and picked and picked. So it's actually accurate too. So you can't pick the fin rays on it or anything else.
Your bison in Omaha, how do you see in an urban setting like that where you get to have wild buffalo running through the city?
Yeah, that was very interesting. First National Bank of Omaha commissioned it. And at first, it was a dirty parking lot. And they wanted me to do something there. So I come up with a fountain with geese flying, taking off from the fountain. But then I thought, no, I'd like to include more of the city. And two colleagues of mine, 5 blocks away, was producing a wagon train in bronze. And so I come up with the idea of having heard of bison being scared by the pioneers coming and running through the city, and then come up and he's running right through a building and then come and run into the park and flush the geese, and they fly off. And it was thanks to the fact that the bank had a president, a most wonderful bloody president. He was an unbelievable courage, you know. And I mean, I come up with one idea, and I tell him, you know, how about having some bison running through the corner of your city garage? He said, yeah, that sounds great. You have to, you have to have approval of the city, of course. But he was a very well-known banker, you know, First National Bank of Omaha, you know. And then I thought, well, we have to have the geese continue too. So then I have the geese leave the fountain, attached to traffic lights, and flying across the street and attached to buildings over there. And then they finally fly right into the new bank building, hanging from the ceiling. And they're 8-foot wingspan. They're 1.5 times life size. And it was tremendous, you know. And Bruce Lauritsen was one of the best clients you could ever had. And Bruce died here a couple of years ago. And I did his memorial sculpture. I did a big tiger for the Lauritsen Botanical Garden in Omaha, because he came from university, you know, with tigers for symbols. Yeah, so I miss Bruce, but sometimes you have the most incredible people, clients believing in you. It's fantastic, you know. Believe in you more than you do yourself. I mean, you don't show it, of course. No, your insecurities are there, you know, but you don't show it at all. Nope, nope. And then, of course, I have a wife here, and yeah, and she is very much part of it. Well, she runs the business, and I get to play in clay. So I didn't have to grow up, you know, but she had to grow up, and she takes care of all the business side of it. And we argue, of course, all the time, but she wins. Every bloody time she wins. Yes, ma'am?
How did your sculptures that were at the Rockport Art Center get rescued when Hurricane Harvey destroyed that area?
Well, actually, my sculptures at the Rockport Art Center, they all survived. They were plenty anchored and stuff like that. And then then they moved, it took the roof off and everything. It was just a wooden building. And then we got a fantastic, a magician new director, Louis Perron. And he built a brand new art center on Austin Street. And like magician, he found money every bloody where. I don't know how the hell he does it, with his government money and private investors too. And he built a beautiful 2-story permanent building that has both performing art, culinary art, and visual arts. And so I created a new sculpture there of 2 seahorses together, 8 foot tall, and another one of a kingfisher, also about 6 foot. But I decided to leave my whooping cranes in the old sculpture garden, because that's what it was commissioned for, And that was a bronze casting of one I was commissioned to do in stainless steel for National Wildlife Federation in Washington, D.C., the whooping cranes. Yeah.
We used to drive to Rockport especially to look at that one.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you. You have taste, madam. Any other questions?
When did you do the Jesus sculpture in Corpus, and how long did it take?
When did I do it? Do you remember that, honey, when I did it? Huh? Early 80s. It took me quite a while, because it was quite a challenge, I did a lot of research, and so it took me about 2 years to do, at least. And the most interesting thing is I come from a fishing village in Sweden, and Jesus was a fisherman, so he had to be in a boat. And of course the committee said, no, nobody knows what a boat looked like during Jesus' time. Well, I was so fortunate during my museum contacts, I found a museum in the Middle East that had found a boat in the Sea of Gennesaret from Jesus' time. And they sent me the drawings. So I surprised the committee by having an accurate fishing boat. But it was fun, but it was also a tremendous challenge, of course, Yeah.
And you're talking to a boat builder, so that has even more.
Oh, okay, great. Well, then you know.
When that Jesus statue was hit by the car, was there any damage done to the sculpture itself?
No, not at all. It just damaged the base. It was marble, marble put on the concrete, and it cracked one of the things, and we put a new marble panel on. But you can imagine the guy when he hit it and looked up. He was shook and he was shaken. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Talk about the ballerina statue at the Performing Arts Center. It's not an animal. Well, it's a late female animal at Corpus Christi, Texas A&M.
Oh, Dansamar. No, that is a Hispanic dancer, a female dancer. And I was working with the guys, with the director and with the architect when we built the Performing Arts Center. And they wanted something to do with performing art, but I just seen Hispanic dancer perform. And the way they create the shapes, the way it flows, it kind of looks like a seashell. And this is a Performing Arts Center right by the water. And so I decided to do it like that. And at first I wanted to put it outside, but the director said put it inside, and it was the best thing. And so, when you go in there, and when you walk down the big stairs, you can look right up the skirt, and you can see the Dansamar, Yeah.
One way back there.
Oh,
sculptures?
Oh, well, I started playing with clay as a kid, probably your age, starting playing with it. But I never did a finished sculpture for quite a while. I was probably, I'd say, in my early teens before I finished the sculpture, really finished it. My dad was a painter, landscape painter. I painted him outdoors, plein air painter. And I got fairly good at that, and I painted murals in museums and stuff. But my passion was always three-dimensional, playing with clay. And I never grew up. I'm still playing in clay, So, but I'd say I was about 12, 13 years old when I really finished my first sculpture, I think. Yeah.
Not sculpted that is interesting to you that you'd still like to do?
Oh, God, that'd be a long list. Well, it comes up and it pops up on its own, all of a sudden, And so I have a hard time singling out something specific, Do you remember anything, honey? Of a single sculpture that I really want to do, but I haven't done. Yeah. Oh, that's a good answer.
You did your, we didn't get to feature it because it's so new, but you did the octopus.
Oh, yeah. I really interested in octopus. I've been diving with Guy Harvey. I think you've heard of Guy Harvey. You saw him here on the TV. He's a fantastic marine biologist, famous around the world. And we've been diving in the world's oceans all over. And once we were on the barrier reef, there was a great cave there. And everybody said, don't go in there. There's a giant octopus in there. He'll eat you, Well, typical me, I had to kind of sneak in and take a look. And I got in there, I didn't see him, and all of a sudden an arm came out. And it kind of held me, kind of almost caressed me, tasted me, kissed me, held me there for quite a while, and I was scared to death, I just sat there and kind of tried to hold him back, and then he let me go. And I've always been fascinated by octopus because they are so smart. They have big brains. In fact, they have part of the brains in every leg. There's a little piece of the brain that communicates with his brain. They're super smart creatures, and indeed, like Matt said, I created an octopus like this, but I love to do it large. I like to do a big octopus, 8 foot or something would be fun, yeah.
So what are you working on today?
Today, I am working on actually also, I'm part of several exhibitions. And Cabo Hall of Fame is one of them. It's called Prix de West. And I always have to create some new pieces for them. And they were the first show that gave me the courage to jump off my train, and stuff. So I'm still participating in there. And I'm always creating smaller stuff at home, in my studio here on the island. The big stuff, they're too big for my studio here, so I have a studio in Colorado near the foundry. And by the way, it's the best foundry I've ever seen in the world. I worked with foundries in Italy, in France, in Germany, and then when I came to Denver, I was always sculpting on the side when I worked in museums. And I took my stuff. Everybody told me there's a foundry here in Loveland, Colorado, that's north of Denver. I said, what the hell is that? And I went up there, and I was like a little shack. I said, oh, geez, I've been in the top foundries, And they showed me, he brought me a piece, that was directly out of the foundry. And it was all clean. And normally, when you go to foundries and get it directly out of the foundry, it's full of vents, feeders. It just looks like a bloody porcupine. And you have to cut each one off and recreate the texture with grinders and pen grinders, you know. And I said, what the hell, I want to see one directly out of the foundry. He said, it is directly out of the foundry. And it just so happens by chance. A man, graduated from Colorado School of Mines, magna cum laude, was picked up by General Motors Experimental Foundry, Bob Zimmerman. And he worked there for years and developed all the modern technology. And then he decided to come back to Loveland to retire and start a foundry to do precision casting for industry, actually. And he befriended artists like me. And it was the most amazing wake-up, you know. And he used a ceramic shell, which was new, which is something you cover the wax with that breathes. So you don't need to have stuff, you know, have the feeding stuff. And also he melted the bronze with electric, not with gas, and all that stuff. And I've never seen a better foundry. So I still, after I lived here for 47 years on the island, raised 2 boys here, I still drive back and forth to Colorado with my clay models. And I use the same, well, since then, 2 more foundries have started in Colorado, but one specifically 2. So there are 2 foundries I use in Colorado, and one is an ex-employee. And of course, the man who started it is long gone, he's dead. And I'm really grateful for that, for the foundries there, you know. That's fantastic, yeah. Yeah. Yes? Oh God, oh, I thought to know, huh? Oh yeah. Well,
if you drive down shoreline, the one that's there, the Wind in the Sails is on shoreline, the Christ statue is
in Corpus Christi, yeah, in shoreline.
You see Bison that's out front, and then if you go in, they've got a number of pieces.
Yeah, there's some major pieces.
Here,
Yeah.
in Port A, the Interdependency piece, which is close to here, the Marine Science.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then.
Ullberg Park as well, also on the island.
Yeah.
Yes, their last name, and it's the park's named after them. It's right off the
Jackfish and Aquarius, yeah. Yeah, actually that was quite an honor being having a park named after you. And it's got 2 sculptures in it, yeah. They're a little bit all over the place, and there are more coming, you know. There's one sculpture going to be at the medical center back there too and stuff. They're slowly dripping in, you know. Yeah.
How many total in this area would you say? Is it like 10 monumental pieces?
At least 10, I think, yeah. Probably more like 15, I think, I don't know. Yeah. You know.
Well, that's right, Texas State Aquarium, if you go there.
Oh yeah, there's several there. Oh, there's 2 at the entrance, and then there's some in the background, 2, 3 in the back. I think there's 5 there. Yeah, and there are some here too. You know, I'm thinking at the entrance to Science Center. There's actually a marlin jumping right next to the sign, but you don't see it. You think it's part of the sign, but it's a marlin jumping there. And then a little further down. To the left of the ferry landing there, there's the institute. There's another sculpture down there. It's a heron, I think. So, a Rockport, yeah. A Rockport has plenty. Yeah, they have several. American Bank also has a fish, has a marlin, yeah, yeah. Yeah, American Bank here, yeah, yeah. That's true.
Things to do. When it's cold, you don't even have to get out of your car.
Yeah, it's easy museum visit, you know. Yeah, drive around.
So do you have any sculptors in training working with you?
Say again?
Do you have any sculptors in training working with you?
No, I don't anymore. I have a foreman who runs my studio in Colorado, and supervises the foundry too, you know. And I go up there all the time and supervise the finish and stuff, but he also takes care of the shipping and all that kind of stuff to different galleries and different shows everywhere. But I used to have lots of people working for me. When I was doing a giant project in Omaha, Nebraska, I had six employees, young sculptors working with me, packing on clay and stuff, and most of them are successful now. You know, they're doing well. Yeah. Yeah.
How many blocks does that cover in Omaha?
About 5 city blocks. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, how many total pieces?
Let's see, there's 58 geese with 8-foot wingspan, larger than life, you know, 1.5 life size. And then there is, how many bison is it? 9 bison, I think, yeah, running across from another site, yeah. There was a a really generous patron, Bruce Lauritsen, the director of First National Bank, who commissioned it. And it's a type of patron, you know, he had a dirty parking lot, he just wanted something put there. And there was a competition. You know, there were 20 artists. You have to compete for stuff like that sometimes. There was 20 artists, 20 finalists. And I actually created a 3-dimensional little sketch model and put it on the boardroom table, you know, and I got the job. But I just come up with the idea of just having a fountain, you know, in the dirty parking lot of geese taking off. And I call, yeah, and then Bruce Lauritsen, the owner, was a great man. Then I expanded it, you know, to the geese. They left the fountain. They fly into the city. They attach to buildings, going through the corner of a garage. Attach the traffic lights to street lights. And then finally they fly into his new bank building hanging in the ceiling. And each one of them was done bit by bit. And every time I come up with an idea, Bruce come up, said, okay, you know, it's a fantastic client. And oh yeah, that's right. And there I did a first combination of bronze and stainless steel. On the geese, you know, they're white-bellied and white cheeks, that's the Canada geese. So I did the animal in bronze, and I did the belly in stainless and the cheek patches. And to weld them together, that was really unusual. That's never been done before, you know. And they're still staying, they haven't fallen apart yet, so. Yeah. And Bruce, when he died here not too long ago. I did his memorial sculpture, which is a big tiger, giant tiger, from honoring his university background, yeah. Princeton. I did a Princeton tiger for him, yeah.
One last question.
I live in Colorado. Is it possible to visit the
Yes, you can if you like, absolutely. You're welcome to it. It's 1240 East 1st Street in Loveland, yeah. 1240 East 1st Street in Loveland, yeah. Most welcome, yeah. And you done with the questions? I'm free. Thank you.
That was really great. You know, it's just being a teacher from Flower Bluff. You know, I'm incredibly proud of the job that was done on this film. And you know, I forgot at the beginning to mention. You know, Denise said they really felt it was her and Matt felt it was important to tell a story about a man who made such a great impact on the community. And I think, you know, in Flower Bluff, just like Port Aransas, it has a real community, and so I can totally understand that. And thank you again for coming, and we really hope you'll come back and show the film in its entirety.
Yes, we would absolutely love to
anyone who is interested in seeing it, you could check in with Denise. We have links that we can share. It's not quite out to the public yet, but if it's something that you don't think you'll be able to make it to later on, just let us know. We'll make sure you have your